Robert Kennedy talks to the people of Indiana.
We cannot separate ourselves, no matter where we live, from the problems and the troubles and the difficulties that face the whole of the United States. And I talk about now about the violence and the lawlessness and the disorder that affects this country. I don't think that's tolerable in this country. I don't think that we have to accept the idea that summer after summer we're going to have violence. I don't think we have to accept the idea that summer after summer we're going to have looting. And I don't think we have to accept the idea that the stain of bloodshed is going to be ever across our country. I don't think it's tolerable that young men and young women growing up in our great cities are not able to find jobs. I don't think it's tolerable here in this country that a young boy or a young girl, even when they finish school, are illiterate and uneducated, and therefore can't go on to either a college or university or on to an employment. And I think whites and blacks, poor and rich together, that we can work together. I think that we have to move beyond the question of welfare in so many areas of the United States, move beyond the question of welfare and establish jobs instead. I think welfare is demeaning and destructive of the human being and of his family. I think instead of welfare, some welfare is going to be necessary for children, for the blind and the disabled. But instead of welfare, instead of a dole, instead of a handout, what we need in the United States is to provide jobs for all of our people, no matter whether they live in the cities or whether they live in the rural areas of our country. I think too much we've left this matter to the control of government and the control of Washington. I think it has to be returned to local control, to the people themselves. And I think an important part in all of this is the business sector and the private sector. Government and business working together to deal with our problems. If you look over the period of the last 30 years, we haven't done that. We've relied chiefly and primarily on government, on Washington. I think we have to have a new philosophy. What was acceptable in the 1930s and what we needed in the 1930s dealt with some of those problems. And the same for the 1940s and the 1950s and the early 1960s. Whether it be the New Deal or the Fair Deal or the days of President Eisenhower or the New Frontier under President John Kennedy. They dealt with some of the problems, but we have new problems. And what their solutions or their answers are not necessarily applicable to this day and age. I think that we have to look beyond what we've done in the past so that we don't rely just on government. We're not relying just on Washington. We don't centralize all authority and all government and all ways of life just in Washington, that we decentralize it and we return government and the control of government to the people themselves. So I come to you for your help. This is, as I say, a difficult campaign, but Indiana can be the key primary. Indiana can decide who is going to be the nominee for the Democratic Party, and therefore, very likely, who's going to be the next president of the United States. Indiana is the area. Indiana is the place where people are going to focus attention on all of you. So I come here to ask for your help. I come here to ask for your assistance. Jefferson once said about the United States, we were the last best hope of mankind. That's what I want the United States to be. This is a generous and compassionate country. That's what I want this country to stand for. Not violence, not lawlessness, not disorder, but compassion and love and peace. That's what this country should stand for, and that's what I intend to do if I'm elected president.
Indiana can choose the next president of the United States.